So we're going to go back to our scene 1 and complete the timeline there. Actually, I had it completed because I'm working with a previously created file. So you may want to pause the video at this point if you haven't already created this structure. Okay. Now I'm going to move ahead though, but you can pause the video at this time, freeze frame on this, and build this directory structure, or rather this layer structure, accordingly. Okay, so I do have keyframes again in frame 1, 5, and 10 in this case, with a label, frame label for each, and that's how I'm going to navigate using the frame labels. Okay, now the concept here, the major concept here that I want to drive home is that we're going to be navigating from this inside of this movie clip, but we don't want to move the playhead inside of that movie clip. We actually want to move what's called the parent's playhead, which is on the main scene timeline. So let me go inside of here, and we'll start with a simple go-to code snippet, but then we'll modify it with some code that you'll have to do by hand. I don't know if you can hear that. That's my little puppies in the background learning to be puppies. They're 5 weeks old today. Anyhow, back to the job here. Okay, so let's start with the first button. Okay. Again, they all need instance names, so I need to complete that thought. I'll call it main button underscore btn. And the yellow one I'll call pg2 underscore btn. And then the red one I'll call pg3. You know what, to be consistent, maybe I'll go back and change that first one to pg1. I think I will for consistency's sake. pg3 underscore btn. Okay, so let me take this back here. pg1. Okay, definitely want to save. So I'm going to put some programming on pg1, which will be the same process for the other two. So we highlight it, go to my snippets, and the snippet that I want to apply is under the timeline navigation. Click to go to frame and stop. Double click that, and I'll just open up my actions panel here a bit more. So what I want to do is I want to replace this. This is actually the placeholder text. It's real code actually, but it's just meant as placeholder. So I want to go to the frame label. So I'm going into the brackets, which is where we put the destination, and frame labels need to be inside of quote marks. And I believe I called it PG01 and close that. All right, I'm going to tell you right now this won't work, and I'll tell you why. Let me just collapse this for a second. Because if you look on this timeline, there is no frame label called PG01. It's actually on the scene 1 timeline, PG01. So let's go back, and I'm going to give you a little magic spell, if you will, how to talk to the parent timeline. Let me go back to my actions panel here. I'm going to close snippets. Actions, okay. And make a modification. So what we have to do is we put this magic code in front. So it's movie clip. Oh, I believe it's capital M, sorry, capital M movie clip. Brackets root dot. So movie clip, capital M, capital C, brackets with the word root. I don't know why my highlight is doing that, but anyhow. Close brackets with a dot. So everything before this means go to the main timeline. So ignore the current timeline, go to the main timeline and execute whatever comes after the dot. In this case, it's saying go to and stop a frame label called page 1. So let's try that. Let's see what happens. So let's see what we have on page 1 here right now. Page 1 is actually the home, so you know what? It's going to go to itself. So let's do page 2 and then we can try it out, okay? So I need to go inside of the movie clip, frame 2, highlight the yellow button, and do that all over again with the snippet. Click to go to frame and stop. Replace this command. Now I can actually copy this line and replace it just a little faster. So let me just indent that there. Okay, and just change the name of the page, page 02. Now we got something to test. I'm saving it, and I'm going to do a test movie here. Okay, so when I click on this, it should go to page 2. So let's try that. There we go, page 2. Now if I click on the pink center, or it turns blue when I mouse over it, it should go back to page 1. So that is how you communicate with the top level from inside of a movie clip. So we'll finish the thought off. We'll do the third and final button here. And let me just hide these guys. And I'm still in there, so let me highlight the red animated button, which I've previously given an instance name. Code snippets. Click to go to frame and stop. Again, I'm going to copy the custom code and replace the placeholder code and just change the page frame label to page 03. Again, you can see there when you use consistent naming conventions, you can kind of anticipate what it is. It's easy to recognize what things are meant for. So this is meant to go to page 2. This is meant to go to page 3. And these are all meant to happen on the root timeline, not on the current timeline. Okay, just collapse that and definitely save my file here. And I believe we've got the whole menu system done, which is, you know, the meat and potatoes, or the beans and sprouts of this exercise. So let me do a test movie here. I'm using my keyboard, Command Return. And we'll just make sure that the navigation works for all 3. I can go out. I don't have to. I can just kind of go from one to the other. And there is our song playing. So that's the next step. How do we stop the song from playing when we go to the other places? And we're also going to put a button click sound in here to finish the thought. But let's do the stop sound thing, and the button click we'll save for the end. It's nice and easy. So there's a nice little command called stop all sounds. So we'll go into the code. We'll actually highlight that pink button to start with, because we want to stop the sounds when we click the pink button and the yellow button, not the red button, because that's the one that plays the sound, and if we stop it, it will never play. So highlight the pink button. We're going to add another snippet, and then we're going to do a modification, which is optional, but I do recommend you doing it. We'll close this up here, and we got audio and video. Click to stop all sounds. I'm going to double click that. It's going to put a whole nother function referring to page 1. And if I scroll up here, we already have a page 1 reference with a function, and we'll learn how to build our own functions in future lessons. But for now, a function is just pre-built combinations of code that can be executed when, in this case, a mouse gets clicked. So I want to just add the function or the command inside of that function so that when I click it, it stops the sound. And this is the code here, soundmixer.stopAll. It will work guaranteed if I leave it as is. Okay, it will. But now I have 2 references to the page 1 button. I'm just cleaning up my code, if you will. So I'm going to copy that before I delete it all. Go into the page 1 function. Click at the end, hit my return key, and paste that in there. I'm basically just consolidating it. So on the one mouse event, it will do 2 things instead of on the mouse event doing something twice. And I will now just delete that one. Okay, so that should stop the sound. Now that I've got that, I can actually just paste that in to button 2. Like, I don't need to go through all of that all over again, and that's why, you know, consolidating it made good sense here. So I'm kind of doing a little advanced approach here, if you will. And I'll just paste that stop all sounds because it's a common command. So it's not referring to anything specific, it's referring to all sounds. Save that. Okay. Now if I do want to clean the indent, there is a button over here. There we go. Okay. So now I have the sound mixer stop all on both page 1 button, which is the pink button, and page 2 button, which is the yellow button. Let's just collapse this, save that, and test that. Okay, so I'm going to come out here, play the song. And I hope you can appreciate too that this is gradually growing at the same rate that the song is completing. All right, so when I hit the pink button, or the blue button in this case now, stop the sound. And that's what we're trying to achieve. So let me go to the red button again, play it. And I'll try that, test that on that yellow button. There we go. So the next thing I'm going to do is actually put a button sound. Now I've already, I believe, loaded button sounds. So I'm going to assume you know how to do an import to library and load a button sound. And I'm going to use the beep small for all of them, okay, which I have here. All right. So let's see here. Inside of each button, go inside of there. I'm going to attach it to the down frame. Now here I know I had been going to a frame 2. Actually, you know what? I'll stick to that. I'm going to create another layer. I'm going to keyframe the down state, F6. With that layer, or rather that frame selected, I'm going to go over to properties. And you can see the sound properties here. I'm going to choose beep small and make sure it's set to event. That's it. Now there's a button sound. So let me go back out to the other ones. Double click that. Create a new layer. Keyframe on the down state, F6. With that frame selected, apply the beep sound. And because I had set it to event the last time, it should say event here, but just be sure it does say event. And that's 2 out of the 3, and then the red button. Go inside of it. I already have an animated layer here, so you know what? I'm going to create a third layer for sound. I'm going to formally name it, which I didn't bother on the other ones. Keyframe the down state, F6, and add the sound beep. Make sure it's set to event. Save my file. And I think now they will all beep as well. And I seem to have made a mistake, and I think I know what it is. Let me go into this button here. I believe since that got keyframed, I actually need to keyframe the hit state all over again here. So I'm just going to hit F6 because it somehow lost that hit state. So I probably should go to each one. And this is why we test often. Hopefully it's 2 steps forwards and 1 backwards and not the other way around. Yellow button, again, I'm just going to go into the hit state on layer 1, F6, keyframe it, and you see how it appears here. All right, and then the third one here, keyframe the hit state on layer 1, F6, save it, test it again. And I will emphasize test often. As you can see, it can be working and then suddenly it doesn't work anymore. There we go. Okay. So what I want to test here is, does the button sound work? Yes, it does. There we have that one, and then that one. And then it shuts off the main sound, and we come back to any of the other buttons. Now the only thing I haven't done yet, I guess I can do it here, is the little rainbow on page 2. So let's go all the way back up to scene 1 and page 2. I already have it here, so I'm just going to draw a second one below it. You can see it right there, and it's just a raw vector shape as you saw. Now I'm going to lock this gradient sky because, you know, if I start to click and drag, it's going to be a problem. See? So I'm going to lock that layer because it's a graphic as my background. Okay, so let's go to my rectangle tool. I will put a stroke on it, I guess, and just rectangle tool. There we go, and fill that, I guess. Now I want to put this in the graphics layer, so I will highlight the frame. Again, very importantly, be aware of where your playhead is and which frame is selected when introducing new graphics to the scene. Okay, so now I'm on that rectangle tool. I'll start just with, you know, a color fill and a black stroke. Then I'll highlight the fill, go over to my color swatches, we'll apply a linear gradient. And really here it's just a case of making a few new chips, changing some colors. So if I wanted to change that to a different color, and I'd like you to do 5. So do 5 different colors. So in the middle here, I'll set that to yellow. And I can actually change the tone as well. Okay, and then 2 more. So here, let's see, I'm just going to randomly pick blue. I'll make it quite light. And then over here, 1 more. I'll make that sort of an orange, a rusty orange on the lighter side. And if I click away here, you can see that manifest. So if you highlight it, it's all live. You go to color swatches, not swatches, sorry, color palette. And of course, you know you can change the bias by sliding these sliders. You can delete them by dragging downwards, and you can add when you see the plus sign. All right, just a slight little review on creating the rainbow effect using your gradient tool. Not tool, rather, your color palette with the gradient set. I believe that's everything, but we should test it. So I'll leave both gradients on there. I'm just going to save my file right now. And one last test, make sure everything works here. So I'll go up to Control, Test, and it appears, it disappears. Okay. The third button animates, it shimmers. The second button has a simple rollover. The first button has a simple rollover, but using the radial gradient to decorate it. So if we click on frame 2, there we are at page 2. Go to and stop, and then the third one again is the sound playing. And any of the other buttons should stop that sound playing. There we go. So that's what I'd like you to build as your sound exercise, which really incorporates a lot of review on the gradient tool, using code snippets. The new feature, which I think is really critical, how to speak to the main timeline from inside of a movie clip. So that's like a child speaking to the parent, if you will. Okay? And that's your exercise for today.